My fiancée told me she needed to try out a few other men before our wedding to be certain I was truly the one. So I made the decision easy for her. I ended the engagement, gave back the ring, and let her experience single life for good. Her reaction was unforgettable. My name is Brian. I am 32, and I work as a flight dispatcher in Seattle. My schedule rotates between early mornings and overnight shifts, so I live by structured routines. I track everything on shared calendars, prep meals on Sundays, and protect my sleep like it is part of my job description. I rent a one-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill and keep my life fairly predictable because aviation does not tolerate chaos. My fiancée is Margaret, 29. We have been together just over 3 years and engaged for 6 months. We do not live together yet, but we split wedding planning tasks and financial deposits evenly. The venue is booked for late summer. Save the dates were already mailed. Both our families have met multiple times and flights are being discussed. Margaret is sharp in a way that can cross into cutting. She enjoys being right, and she tends to deliver opinions with a kind of smug finality. If she feels challenged, she leans into sarcasm instead of discussion. I have never ignored that pattern. When something bothered me, I addressed it directly and early. I do not let resentment build because I have seen what that does to couples. Last Thursday, I went to her place after a 12-hour shift. She texted that she had something important to talk about. I assumed it was about the caterer or her frustration with my mother asking about rehearsal dinner details. She had wine poured before I even took my jacket off. That was unusual for a weeknight. She was sitting upright on the couch, phone face down on the coffee table, watching me the way someone watches a presentation they expect to critique. She did not ask how work was. She did not ease into anything. As soon as I sat down, she said she needed to try out a few other men before our wedding to be certain I was truly the one. She said it calmly, not as a joke, not as a nervous thought she regretted. She presented it like a practical test drive. Then she held eye contact, almost curious about what I would do. I did not raise my voice. I asked her to repeat it because I wanted to be sure I heard her correctly. She rolled her eyes and clarified that it would be better to explore now than have doubts later, and that if I was secure, I would understand. That word secure was intentional, and she knew it. I asked her to explain exactly what she meant, because vague statements are where people later pretend you misunderstood them. She sighed like I was being intentionally dense. She said she loved me. She said she planned to marry me. But she had only been in 2 serious relationships before me, and she did not want to walk down the aisle with a question in the back of her mind about what else was out there. Her solution was what she called a short period of exploration. A few dates, maybe more if necessary. Just enough to confirm that I was the best option. She actually used the word option. I kept my voice steady and asked what she expected from me during this exploration period. She said she assumed I would stay committed because this was about her clarity, not mine. She added that if I trusted our connection, I would not feel threatened. Then she took a sip of wine like she had just delivered a lecture. I work in aviation. If a pilot told me he wanted to test other airlines mid-contract just to be certain he preferred ours, that would be grounds for termination. Commitment does not function on temporary side quests. I am not wired to negotiate basic exclusivity. I asked how she imagined this playing out logistically. Would I just wait at home while she went on dates? Would she update me? Would there be rules? She shrugged and said I was overcomplicating it. According to her, mature adults understand that curiosity does not equal betrayal. That was when I realized this was not a panicked confession. She had thought about it. She had phrased it carefully. She expected resistance, but believed she could intellectually corner me into accepting it. So I ended it. I told her plainly that if she felt the need to test other men before committing, then we were not aligned on what engagement means. I said I would not compete for my own fiancé. I would not put my life on hold while she evaluated alternatives. If she needed single life to confirm her choice, she could have it fully. Her expression shifted from smug to confused in about 2 seconds. She asked if I was serious. I said yes. I told her the engagement was over and the wedding was canceled on my end. I said I would return the ring and we could discuss vendor refunds later. She stared at me like I had broken some unspoken script. Then she tried to pivot. She said I was being extreme. She said this was just a conversation. She said mature couples work through discomfort. I told her I just had. Then I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of her apartment. She called after me, telling me to stop being dramatic. I did not respond. I drove home through downtown traffic feeling oddly steady. Not numb, not furious, just clear. By the time I parked in my building garage, I had already mentally adjusted my life forward without her in it. She wanted to explore her options. Now she could. She called before I even got onto I-5. I let it ring out the first time. She called again immediately. I answered on the third attempt because I prefer clarity over prolonged chaos. Her tone was sharp, but there was something under it now. Not fear exactly. More like disbelief. She said I was spiraling. She said I was throwing away 3 years over a hypothetical conversation. She kept repeating that she had not actually done anything yet. I told her that was the point. The only reason she had not done anything yet was because she wanted permission first. That did not make it better. It made it deliberate. She tried to reframe it as growth. She said people evolve. She said marriage is permanent, and she was being responsible by confronting her doubts now instead of cheating later. She even implied that I should be grateful she was honest. I asked her one question. If I had told her I needed to try out a few other women before committing, would she have calmly supported that? She did not answer directly. She said it was different. I hung up. I did not wait for the explanation. I did not give her space to repackage it. I had what I needed. When someone argues that the same behavior would be unacceptable if reversed, that is not a values conversation. That is entitlement. She called back immediately. I declined it. Then another call. Then a third. I turned my phone face down on the passenger seat and focused on driving. By the time I reached my exit, the notifications were stacking up. Texts came in rapid bursts. You are overreacting. Stop being dramatic. Call me back. We are not breaking up over this. I parked in my garage and finally checked them all at once. The tone had shifted again. Now she was accusing me of trying to punish her for being honest. She said my reaction proved she could not safely share doubts with me. She said this was exactly why she felt uncertain. That part almost impressed me. In less than 20 minutes, she had repositioned herself from someone requesting permission to date other men to someone who was a victim of my intolerance. I did not respond. Instead, I went upstairs, took the ring off my finger, and placed it on my kitchen counter. Not symbolically, just practically. Engagement requires mutual exclusivity. She had just declined that condition, and I do not negotiate core terms. I did not sleep much that night, but not because I was second-guessing myself. My brain was in logistics mode. First, the venue contract. Non-refundable deposit, but partial credit if canceled before 90 days. We were still outside that window. I made a note to call in the morning. Second, the caterer. Smaller deposit. Probably gone. Acceptable loss. Third, the guest list. We had sent digital save the dates. No printed invitations yet. That made this cleaner. Margaret kept texting past midnight. You are acting unstable. This is why people cheat instead of being honest. I was trying to protect us. The language was interesting. She positioned her request as a favor to me, like she deserved credit for transparency while simultaneously asking for a hall pass. Around 1 in the morning, she shifted tone again. Can we just talk calmly tomorrow? I did not mean it like that. You are twisting my words. I had screenshots. There was no twisting. At 6:30, my alarm went off for shift briefing. My phone lit up immediately. Missed calls. New messages. Another incoming call. I did not answer. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. We had already had the defining conversation. Repeating it would not produce a new outcome. It would only create emotional noise. She called 3 times while I was in the shower. Twice while I was driving to work. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb except for immediate family. I do not mix personal volatility with air traffic operations. By 9 in the morning, there were 12 missed calls. Her texts evolved in tone again. Please just talk to me. You cannot just shut me out. This is not how adults handle conflict. That line almost made me laugh. Adults handle conflict by respecting non-negotiable boundaries. I had stated mine clearly. Engagement without exclusivity is not something I entertain. Around noon, she switched to anger. So you are really throwing this away. You are unbelievable. Call me now. I did not respond. Instead, during my lunch break, I stepped outside and called the venue. I canceled. I requested the partial credit refund as outlined in the contract. It was professional and uneventful. Then I emailed the caterer. I was not reacting emotionally. I was reorganizing my life. By mid-afternoon, she stopped calling. That silence felt louder than the noise. The silence lasted about 4 hours. Then, right before my shift ended, a single message came through. I am coming over tonight. We are not ending 3 years over text. I did not respond. When I got home around 6, her car was parked outside my building. She must have left work early. That detail registered. Not emotionally, just factually. She was leaning against the entrance door when I walked up. Arms crossed. Jaw tight. Not crying. Not apologetic. Controlled. She started talking before I even reached her. She said this had gone too far. She said I had made my point. She said she never agreed to actually do anything. She framed the entire situation as a theoretical discussion that I escalated. I let her finish. Then I told her we could talk, but only briefly. We went upstairs. I did not offer her anything to drink. I did not sit close. The tone was procedural. She asked if I really canceled the venue. Yes. She stared at me for a few seconds, like she was recalculating. She said I had no right to make unilateral decisions about our wedding. I reminded her that she had just made a unilateral proposal to open the relationship. We were already outside shared agreement. She rolled her eyes and said I was being rigid. She said relationships are not contracts. She said I was acting like a robot instead of a partner. I told her calmly that engagement requires shared definitions. Ours clearly did not match. There was a pause. She looked like she was deciding whether to escalate or retreat. Instead of apologizing, she pivoted again. She said I was choosing pride over partnership. She said if I loved her, I would at least consider flexibility. She asked if I was really willing to walk away without trying harder. I told her trying harder would mean convincing myself to accept something I fundamentally reject. That is not compromise. That is self-betrayal. The room went quiet. Neither of us moved for a few seconds. There was no yelling, no dramatic crying, just two people standing in a space that no longer fit both of them. I told her this conversation was over. She asked if that was final. Yes. I walked her to the door. She hesitated like she expected me to soften at the last second. I did not. She left without another word. And this time, I did not feel conflicted. I felt finished. The next morning, before I even got out of bed, I blocked her number. Not impulsively. I had already ended the engagement in person. The follow-up messages were not about understanding. They were about reframing. If someone proposes non-exclusivity before marriage and then cycles through 3 different explanations in 48 hours, more conversation is not clarity. It is strategy. I blocked her on text and calls. Then I removed her from social media. Not to be dramatic. To prevent escalation. I know how drawn out these things can get when people think persistence equals persuasion. By 8 in the morning, my phone was quiet. For about 2 hours. Then an email came through. Subject line. We need to talk like adults. She wrote that blocking her was childish. She said it proved I could not handle uncomfortable conversations. She reframed the entire situation again. According to this version, she had been vulnerable and I punished her vulnerability. I noticed something consistent. In every draft of her explanation, she was the reasonable one and I was either insecure, prideful, immature, or reactive. There was never a version where her request itself was inappropriate. That absence mattered. She also mentioned that her friends thought my reaction was extreme. That detail felt intentional. Social pressure is leverage. I did not respond to the email. Instead, during my lunch break, I contacted the remaining vendors. Florist canceled. Photographer released the date with partial refund. DJ deposit lost. Acceptable. Each cancellation made the situation more real in a practical sense. Less theoretical. Less emotional. Around 3 in the afternoon, I received a message from an unknown number. You cannot just erase me. It was her. I blocked that number too. This was not avoidance. It was containment. We had already had the defining conversation. Repeating it would only invite her to keep reshaping the narrative until I doubted my own boundaries. By evening, I felt something I did not expect. Relief. Not happiness. Not triumph. Just the absence of negotiation. And that quiet felt stable. The relief lasted 3 days. On the 4th, she showed up at my building again. This time she did not wait outside. She rang my unit directly. I did not buzz her in. She rang again. Then she called through the building directory system, which bypasses normal blocking. Her voice came through the speaker in the hallway, slightly distorted. Brian, stop hiding. We need to finish this. Finish what was unclear. From my perspective, it was finished. I did not answer through the intercom. After a few minutes, the ringing stopped. Then my phone buzzed with a notification from our shared wedding planning app. She had logged in and updated the status of the event to paused instead of canceled. That told me something important. She still thought this was reversible. I logged in and removed myself from the account entirely. Then I emailed the venue confirmation of cancellation one more time to ensure no one could reinstate the booking without my consent. Contracts matter. About an hour later, I received a call from her sister. I answered that one. Her sister asked what was going on. Not accusatory. just confused. Margaret had apparently told her that I blindsided her after she tried to have an honest conversation about relationship growth. That phrasing was almost impressive. I explained briefly. I kept it factual. She proposed dating other men before our wedding to confirm I was the right choice. I declined. I ended the engagement. No yelling. No cheating. Just incompatible definitions. There was silence on the other end. Then her sister said, "She actually said that." Yes. Another pause. She sighed and said she would talk to her. I did not ask for mediation. I did not ask for validation. But it was interesting to hear someone else process it in real time without reframing. That evening, Margaret sent one final email. "You are humiliating me. Do you know what people are saying?" That sentence clarified something else. Her concern had shifted from relationship loss to social optics. And if reputation was now the priority, then I had likely made the correct decision. Still, a small part of me wondered if she would escalate further. Because people who believe they are entitled to negotiation do not always accept finality quietly. The escalation came 2 days later. A mutual friend texted me asking if I was okay. That alone told me Margaret had started talking. Apparently, the version circulating was that I panicked over a harmless hypothetical and canceled our wedding without discussion. In this story, she had been vulnerable and I shut down emotionally. I did not launch a counter-campaign. I do not believe in recruiting juries for breakups. But I also was not going to let a distorted version stand unchallenged. So when people reached out directly, I kept it simple. She told me she wanted to try other men before marriage. I declined and ended the engagement. No extra commentary. No character attacks. Facts tend to stabilize conversations quickly. A few days later, she emailed asking to meet in person one last time. She said she wanted closure. She said things had unraveled too fast. She said we owed each other a real conversation. I read it twice. Nothing had unraveled. A boundary had been crossed, and I responded. I did not agree to meet. Instead, I replied with a short message. If there are logistical items to exchange, we can coordinate a time for drop-off. There is no further relationship discussion to be had. Her response came within minutes. So that is it. 3 years reduced to scheduling. The framing was deliberate. She wanted the refusal to seem cold. I answered once more. 3 years ended when you asked to explore other men before marriage. I am simply respecting that request. After that, her tone shifted again. She said she had not actually meant it. She said she was scared. She said she thought I would reassure her, not leave. She asked if I could at least sit down with her so she could explain properly. That detail stood out. Explain properly. As if the issue had been poor wording instead of the content itself. I did not respond. Instead, I coordinated the exchange of her belongings through a mutual friend. Neutral ground. No drama. No reopening. She sent one final message that night. You are going to regret not fighting for us. Maybe. But fighting for something that contradicts my standards is not strength. It is self-erosion. And I was not willing to start a marriage by negotiating away the basics. The belongings exchange happened on a Saturday afternoon. I packed everything that was clearly hers into 2 medium boxes. Clothes she kept at my place. A spare makeup bag. A couple of framed photos. Nothing sentimental on my end. I am not someone who holds on to artifacts once the context is gone. Our mutual friend picked them up from the lobby. I did not go down. An hour later, I received a message from him. She is not taking this well. That was vague, but predictable. Later that evening, she emailed again. This time the tone was different. No accusations. No reframing. Just anger. She said I embarrassed her in front of her family. She said people were asking what happened, and she did not know what to tell them. She accused me of making her look unstable by telling others the truth without softening it. That part was revealing. Not that I ended the engagement, but that I did not protect her image after she proposed opening it. She also mentioned something new. She said she had already turned down someone who was interested in her because she was committed to me. She framed it as a sacrifice, as proof of loyalty. I read that line carefully, because it confirmed there had been someone specific in the background. Maybe nothing physical happened. Maybe it was just flirtation. But the curiosity she described was not abstract. It had a target. For a brief moment, I wondered if I should have asked more questions earlier. Dug into who it was. When it started, whether this conversation was preventive or premeditated. But then I stopped myself. The details would not change the decision. Whether she had someone lined up or just liked the attention, the underlying issue was the same. She viewed commitment as conditional until fully satisfied. I do not. Around midnight, she sent one final message. You could have fought for me. That sentence kept echoing. Because from my perspective, I did fight. I fought for my standard of what marriage means, and I refused to dilute it to keep someone who wanted options. By then, I was not angry, just certain. And certainty is quieter than people expect. It has been 3 months. The refunds are settled. Most of the deposits were partially recovered. The rest I treated as tuition for a lesson learned early instead of late. We have not spoken since that last message. She tried once more about 2 weeks after everything ended. Another email. Shorter this time. I miss you. I did not think you would actually leave. She did not say I was wrong. She did not say her request crossed a line. She did not say she understood why it mattered. She said she did not think I would leave. Expectation versus consequence. I did not respond. Around that same time, I heard through a friend that she had gone on a few dates. Nothing serious. Just casual. The irony did not escape me. The freedom she wanted came faster than she anticipated. The difference is that now it came without a safety net. I have replayed the conversation in my head exactly once. Not obsessively, just analytically. If I had stayed and argued, what would the future look like? Every disagreement reframed as insecurity. Every boundary labeled as ego. Every time she felt curious, I would be expected to reassure instead of evaluate. Marriage magnifies dynamics. It does not fix them. The intriguing part, at least to me, is how quickly certainty changes power dynamics. The moment I removed myself from negotiation, the conversation shifted from exploration to damage control. Not because she suddenly valued exclusivity, but because she lost the guarantee. I am not claiming perfection here. I am not immune to doubt or attraction or curiosity. But when I commit, I close doors intentionally. If someone needs open doors to feel secure, we are not compatible. The engagement ended the same week it was tested. There was no screaming, no dramatic betrayal, just a proposal that revealed a mismatch in values. Her reaction was unforgettable, not because it was explosive, but because it was revealing. She expected negotiation. I chose finality. And sometimes, that is the only response that makes sense.